When I say transmission structure, what do you think of?
Transmission structure.
Transmission structure?
I've never heard of that at all, ever.
Is that like
I mean, that could
like
be
a utility thing?
I think they're generally quite ugly, and they don't really fit in a landscape.
Large metal structures, intrusive.
They do seem quite functional.
Big towers that have open spaces underneath them because the people are afraid of the electromagnetic something or other.
Like across at the top and then the wires.
Gee, that's a first for me. I've never heard of anything like that.
Okay. I can't, I'm not picturing that.
Big metal, like triangular pyramid-like frames with wires that connect them.
Everything we do pretty much runs with electricity. There's a generation plant that generates electricity maybe via nuclear or coal or hydro. And then that electricity generated needs to get to your home, and that's where transmission structures come in. Transmission structures will take the electricity from the generation plant into your home. So sometimes when we talk about aesthetics, it doesn't mean that we want to shine light on the structure or make it beautiful and colorful. Sometimes we want it to blend with the background.
Normally the type of structures we're asked to design and manufacture and provide are ones that need to fit into the landscape and to sort of disappear into the landscape. And that's great. These are lifeline utility projects bringing power, the power grid to the public. That's our industry that we're in. Then you open up an inquiry package that has something completely outside the box.
Anytime you're trying to combine functionality with aesthetics, you're always balancing those things. And so for them to come out and say it looks great, I mean, you go, well, it doesn't work, or it works perfectly but doesn't look great. As the population gets denser and denser and we're living in the urban areas, sometimes it is very difficult to avoid these structures. They come in next to our buildings, next to our houses. That's why it's so important that we get the public acceptance.
It is more the surroundings creates the tower, not any our idea, but the idea of the architect, of the design and the surrounding.
Why the transmission structure looks so plain? Any other structures on the road close to the building is better than a transmission structure, like a light pole or bridge or building? I think that's a very fair question.
As a matter of fact, aesthetics, believe it or not, they have been discussed in the past. We can go back and look at some structures at the turn of the century, for example, that Zhukov had done in 1929. There is a beautiful structure over the Oka River in Russia that Zhukov designed. He actually invented this new concept of design, which is the hyperboloid structures.
It is actually astonishing that we don't really know what inspired him to invent the hyperbolic lattice tower. There's some myth and legends that he was inspired by a woven reed basket, but in fact we don't really know whether that's true or not. It's interesting to note that there is no real precursor to hyperbolic lattice towers or hyperbolic lattice structures, which is very uncommon in architecture or building history. But it's very unique that someone comes up with a radical novel structural system or a radical novel form, which is the case here. And this is also what makes hyperbolic lattice towers or hyperbolic lattice structures so compelling and unique. Obviously, all of his structures are stunningly beautiful and really visually extremely compelling. Yet, I don't think that this was his goal at the beginning. It's rather how you balance the other aspects and how you bring them together as a designer. And this is more a subconscious decision, I'd say.
It was very interesting because we had to make all the functional requirements for the strength and for the electrical clearance and all that. But at the same time, the structure needed to look like a Mickey Mouse. A very simple body of the structure with one head and two ears. It was interesting to be able to design this structure that is functionally capable of taking all the loads, but at the same time, when you look at it, it brings a smile to your face.
It was architectural, and it was a landmark project. It was obvious it was going to be something special. Up to a point, this was all in our wheelhouse. And then we get to the neck of the structure, and then obviously the superstructure with these big circles and ellipses was outside of our normal manufacturing equipment. Even our manufacturing space was going to have to be severely bent to accommodate our manufacturing project.
When you look at that structure, you don't see the wires, you don't see the transmission structures. You look at it and you're like, wow, I'm in Disney World. It shows that you can come up with a design that does what you want to do, but at the same time, it can be an art form, it can be a landmark.
Just to see it go from this inquiry package that we opened up and we thought, that's crazy, then we got really enthused about, and then to see it actually go through the galvanizing process successfully, and then is going to do the job of being a transmission line structure, but also being a signature project. It was very gratifying. And then to take my family there in the years since has been fun as well.
The structures in Finland, they were mainly designed by a very famous architect, Professor Normas Niemi. He basically came up with the landmark structures for many different locations. He used the history and the location of each one of those structures as part of his design. So each one of them has a story to tell. He uses simple, straightforward design. He uses color, shape, light, texture all over to come up with different designs. Every one of them is unique. Every one of them tells a story.
We had always had this kind of idea that these towers must be adapted, designed to the surroundings. The costs are in this kind of work something which is challenging. But some of the towers we have paid almost the same price as conventional towers. The blue cranes in Espoo, it was really successful. There was a huge road crossing. The two highways were crossing there, and we had to change some of our towers. The road authorities asked from us, could it be possible that we could make a landscape tower instead of a conventional one, and we did it together with them, and it has shown to be a prominent landmark for the whole crossing, and people coming to capital area notice that now they are coming. It's really, really nice looking and fitting so well to the surroundings.
From engineering point of view, it's optimized design. And from the siting point of view, it's a good addition to the neighborhood.
I like bold, first of all, because a major utility in the United States has decided to have aesthetics as a very important part of their design. So that's where bold is so important. It is compact, it is simple, it is beautiful.
The engineering requirements is always predefined. You have to follow this code, this loading requirement, this clearance. There are certain requirements is well predefined. But aesthetic is no boundary. You can do everything inside this space. That's why even for same requirements, you have a different aesthetic design.
It's my first time to saw the structure as built. Before that, everything is on the paper. All the rendering with the colors make me feel good, but I don't know what they look like in the field, right? So I come to the field and look at it from the distance. Oh, I'm satisfied.
But as far as the technology and the cost definitely is in the mind. We don't want to, design a very expensive structure, since I know there's no market for a super expensive structure. It has to be, practical, reasonable.
So my hope in future is that the aesthetics becomes part of the requirement and let the industry compete. And I am pretty sure that by incorporating it in design, we can actually make them very cost effective and very efficient in the future.
Of course, we want that this kind of thinking is spreading all over the world.
Engineer who see bold, I think they should think this is not just one-time design. The aesthetic design itself, it's infinite option. Engineer has a lot of room can play to have their own aesthetic design too. So I talked that with my previous boss too. I said, what do you think about the aesthetic transmission line structure design? He told me, this just started. There's a bright new future, big future for the transmission structure aesthetic design.
Transmission line towers are parts of our everyday life, and they really shape our landscape. They're very important parts of our infrastructure with which we are confronted every day. So I would argue it is important to strive for something that's not only efficient, but also beautiful and visually attractive.